I'm going to start with bookmarking one thing for future discussion, and that is the gross amount isn't the key to the sale, it's the net amount. And so when you're talking to your wealth advisor, you need to loop in your CPA to know if you get 5 million after you run it through the tax system and you're in California, the tax implications of a sale in California are greater than if you're in Nevada. And so you need to evaluate that piece. But getting back to the psychological, it's a very interesting question because the dollars do matter to our clients, and we exclusively represent the sell side of transactions at my firm. But you also got to think about the employees, the customers, the vendors.
Welcome to the Build to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe the key to scaling and compounding your wealth in life starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to help you scale and compound your wealth in life so you can give more all of it away to help MVPs. My name is Brett Swartz. Each and every episode, we are joined by the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires or billionaires, and they share their secrets and insights with us so we can all level up and make a bigger impact. I'm excited about our next guest. He's the president and CEO of International Business Associates, a Pacific Northwest's oldest and largest business brokerage firm, established in 1975 with over 30 years of experience in mergers and acquisitions. He has personally facilitated over 300 transactions involving privately held companies and family businesses across multiple states. His expertise spans manufacturing, distribution, technology, marine, automotive, education, retail, and so much more, with transactions ranging from about 1 million to 30 million in value. Please welcome to the show with me, Mr. Gregory Kovsky. Gregory, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. Brett, it's wonderful to be here.
Excellent. For our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us just a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Certainly, I'm happy to do it. So I'm a Pacific Northwest boy, grew up in Portland, Oregon. IBA sold my father's veterinary hospital. That was my family's first exposure to the company. I left the rain, went to the University of Texas down in Austin, graduated from McCombs, explored my first career, took me to Kansas City, missed the mountains and ocean, and came back to the Northwest in 94. Didn't know what I wanted to do next, and my father said, "You're a salesman by personality, you've got an accounting and finance background academically. I think you'd be good at selling businesses." Introduced me to the founder of the firm, Bill Osofsky. I joined in 94, emerged as one of the top sales people with the firm. In 2000, we did an internal sale where I acquired the company, and 26 years later, I'm still playing this game.
Fantastic. I love it, Gregory. Let's dive right into the topic, which is the number one, secret to selling a business in today's environment. What is the top thing if you're sitting down with a business owner who's got a 5, 10, 20, $30 million exit, and they're saying, "Wow, Gregory, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get the highest price and the best terms and the most certainty of closing?"
I would start with the age-old saying, those that fail to plan to fail. So you need to surround yourself with quality professional advisors. Selling a business is very sophisticated. There's legal elements, there's accounting elements, there's tax elements, there's finance elements, there's business elements, and psychological elements, and then frequently real estate elements. And so you need to have all the domains of knowledge and experience necessary to execute intelligently. And then the fail point for many sales is not knowing the market and where to go to market, because I always say there's no dumb money, and the people who would buy a business, whether it's for 3 million or 30 million, they're going to have their team. They are going to know the marketplace. And if you don't have someone on your team who can justify the value you're seeking, you're going to lose at the poker table.
So good so far. I love it. I'm going to just kind of recap. You got to make sure you have all of the domains of knowledge, or have a team that has this to help you with this when you're planning: legal, accounting, tax, business, psychological, real estate elements. And you're doing the planning, being intentional, right? I like to say you spent 10,000 hours or more building this blood, sweat, and tears. Why not spend 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 hours? I mean, you know, if you can build a team to make sure before you exit, before you're in those major areas of which can trigger the event to sell. What percentage of sellers do you feel actually do the intentional planning, and or it's more reactionary due to a death or divorce or disability or some kind of triggering event?
It's a very loaded question, Brett, because most of our clients are executing their vision, doing what they enjoy, and making money. So our problem is they don't need to sell. They have to want to sell. But the smart ones, and most entrepreneurs are street smart, will realize they do need to have a strategy in place. And frequently, we're dealing with the silver tsunami right now, the baby boomers retiring. One we didn't touch on is you need to meet with your wealth advisor and understand, once you know what your business is worth. If I tell you I can get 5 million for your company, well, then you need to have them look, is that enough to retire? Is that enough to do the legacy plans you want? Is that enough to do the charity that you want? Because a business has two sides. It has its annuity while you own it, and will stay with that $5 million company, and maybe you're earning $1 million a year, a 5 multiple at time of sale. Well, if you need 7 million to retire like you want, maybe you need to stay at the helm 2 more years, bank a little bit more money, and then execute on the sale. Because once you sell the cow, you're not taking the milk home anymore.
Yeah, I think people would call that a gap analysis, right? What's world class versus where you're at, and it may not take much to get to world class. And if people, processes, systems, and your numbers, and figuring out ways to get that to a place where your value is where you need it to be. I've heard it put this way too: your personal finance needs to be aligned or clear. Your business, the timing for the sale, and then your actual lifestyle. Talk about the psychological piece of this, right? People's identities are tied, which understandably so, right? This is how they've been pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into something. Like where your heart is, there your treasure will be also, right? So talk about just the psychological change that people need to be prepared for, and what do the best ones do to make sure that their purpose and their identity is not so, completely wrapped up in the business that when they sell, they're in a really tough state.
I'm going to start with bookmarking one thing for future discussion, and that is the gross amount isn't the key to the sale, it's the net amount. And so when you're talking to your wealth advisor, you need to loop in your CPA to know if you get 5 million after you run it through the tax system, and you're in California, the tax implications of a sale in California are greater than if you're in Nevada. And so you need to evaluate that piece. But getting back to the psychological, it's a very interesting question, because the dollars do matter to our clients. And we exclusively represent the sell side of transactions at my firm. But you also got to think about the employees, the customers, the vendors, because if you're in small town America and you're selling your company, the last thing you want to do is go to a restaurant, your favorite restaurant, for a steak and run into ex employees who give you the stink eye because you sold to a buyer who let them go, and they're in their late 50s, early 60s, and now they're scrambling in life. So sometimes thinking about who you sell to, if they're going to shut down the manufacturing facility in your small town, you may leave some dollars on the table to protect your legacy because the Little League park has your name on it. And you don't want people looking at you negatively. And same thing with your customers. They've come to know and trust you. And then your vendors. I was talking to a roofing company owner who I sold, and he bought a lot of plywood from a lumber yard where he had a great relationship with that owner. Well, if this roofing company, to save a dime, moves to another lumber yard, his good friend gets detrimentally impacted. And so all of these businesses have built their own ecosystems of employees, customers, and vendors. And it truly needs to be something a selling owner thinks about. It doesn't mean it's going to ultimately sway their decision, but all things being equal, if you can protect those three parties in a sale, it's probably going to make you sleep better at night.
Yeah, we're speaking with Gregory Kovsky, everybody. Gregory Kovsky, spelled Kovsky. You can learn more by going to ibainc.com, ibainc.com. Pacific Northwest premier business broker since 1975, celebrating over 50 years in 2025. Check them out. They completed over 4,400 business sale transactions, sell side. You know what the worst thing to do is when you're selling a business? Paying huge capital gains taxes. In fact, they're about 20 to 50% of the sale. And if your client is selling, whether you're a business broker, M&A advisor, financial advisor, they have a large capital gains tax problem. And guess what? We have a solution. We build capital gains tax solutions for sellers of highly appreciated assets, including real estate, including businesses and other assets. And we want to encourage you to take action today to learn about what solutions are available. So think about a business, think about real estate, think about other assets that have at least $1 million net proceeds and $1 million gain, and this sale is going to result in 20 to 50% in tax. So what can you do? Well, you can build a capital gains tax solution with our team. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com or click on the link below to get started. And speaking of tax, Gregory, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, somewhere between 20, 30, 40, 50% of this sale, if it's a C Corp, I've seen as high as 60, 70% of this sale is going to be subject to capital gains tax depreciation recapture, depending on what state you live in, depending on how you've taken depreciation over the time. And it's brutal, right? To think you've spent 10,000 hours building it, and if you just spent a few hours planning, that amount can be deferred and can be compounded and can be used to put into other business ventures or other real estate ventures or live off for retirement. So back to your 7 million versus the 5 million, oftentimes that value gap can be, a profit gap can be made up through capital gains tax solutions that allow for the deferral of the tax. I know we helped a business owner out of San Diego selling a car wash, $13 million exit, and they're facing this massive tax. Not only that, they had debt on the real estate and the business, and they're going, wow, now's not a good time to 1031 exchange for a number of reasons. And we think interest rates are kind of low at this point, and we get a sense that the market's kind of hot. And so they were wise, and we built a plan to defer their tax, pay off their debt, diversify their wealth. Talk about the importance of capital gains tax planning and or just the challenges with the 1031 exchange, which used to apply to a business sale, but no longer does. But even then, you got to go like kind, and most business owners, they're looking to be retired out of that business. So talk about your experience with 1031 exchanges and some of the challenges as well.
Certainly. So 1031 exchanges are a great tool, and you're right, they are not applicable anymore for business sales, but they are very applicable for real estate sales. And IBA has the ability to sell both asset classes under one umbrella for a client. So, say you are a baby boomer and you built your company starting in the 1990s and we're 30 years later, well, your asset of a business definitely grew, and frequently most of that business is blue sky, which is goodwill, which is subject to the capital gains tax. And then on the real estate side, in most places, especially on the West Coast where we're based, if you owned a piece of real estate for 30 years, its value has increased, and you do have a significant capital gain tax. And that's where you can look at different options ranging from a 1031 exchange. I mean, we often recommend selling the real estate. We're all familiar with Sears. Well, if you have a single tenant in a building, there's risk exposure. People didn't think people that had Kmart and Sears were at risk with tenants, but it's taken years to absorb those large big box spaces.
Pause you for a second. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's brokerage malpractice to have somebody sell and continue to put all of it into a single tenant asset, into one asset class real estate. And it's like they built this thing up for 10, 20, 30 years. It's their retirement, and they're doing, let the tax tail wag the investment dog. And they think it's simple because it's triple net, and I don't have to worry the tenants, the toilets, trash, the all of the insurance. They all pay for it. I just get this check in the mail, and it's like, oh, you're missing it. Like, that is the opposite of you're increasing your risk. I've even seen it with the CVS's or these Walgreens. You're like, oh, these things are just AAA, and these, and then they go dark, and you see the Halloween store come in there for like 3 or 4 months or whatever that's last, and they're out again. You're like, oh my gosh, but they're like, the lease is guaranteed, yeah, until it runs out, and then they don't renew the lease. So to us, this is why the 1031 exchange, we call it Blockbuster, Gregory. And we like to build using 453 installment sales with trust, where you can defer tax and not have to be subject to the timing restrictions of the 1031 exchange, nor do you have to be subject to the asset class over concentration. I mean, you can go into traditional stocks, you can go into passive real estate funds, you can go to active business deals, you can go to private equity, private credit, you can go into Bitcoin, you can go into different asset classes that you can diversify, right? That's the point, and have liquidity and be out of debt. The other thing about the 1031, you have to replace the debt. So if you're selling something where you have interest rates of 3.5%, 4% that you've been locked in for a few years, well, when you transfer, right now it's 6.5%, 7%, maybe sometimes 8%. So you're having to take on more debt, and debt to us in a market that it's not making a lot of sense for a lot of real estate deals increases the risk. So, but back to the business sales as well. Our strategy works for business sellers. Like, we just did a large business exit out of Connecticut, a large one out of Arizona, a large one out of North Carolina. Like, we're doing them all over the country, where we help business owners exit and truly diversify and get that passive income. So talk about the importance of stuff outside the 1031 exchange.
No, it's very important to have the right professionals involved to problem solve the tax issues, because there are a full spectrum. I've worked with many of the top CFOs, CPAs in the United States, and they will often say having someone from IBA is like having another member of a think tank, because we are not a CPA or CFO, but myself, having done this 32 years, I've sat with many of the top CPAs and CFOs and learned, and I have the ability to share ideas where I can say, I have seen a deferred sales trust used. I have seen a Delaware statutory trust used. I have seen someone in a 1031 exchange go from a single tenant building to a multi-tenant opportunity that doesn't have the same level of risk. I have seen on C Corps an allocation to personal goodwill and personal non-competes to avoid double taxation issues. So like we started this conversation, the smartest people in the world hire talent and delegate. The ones who fail often hold things tight to their fist and think they know it all. I mean, I've raised two kids, one to 20, one to 23. It's amazing as they get older, they actually will come back to their mother and I and say, that advice you gave was sound. It took me a few years to realize it, but it actually makes sense.
Oh, I'm speaking with Gregory Kovsky. I swear we're cut from the same cloth here with the background with transactional work. I started at Marcus and Millichap and, went through the 1031s. And we still do 1031s. Like we like it when the deals make sense. We don't want to completely throw them under the bus, but you can learn more about Gregory Kovsky by going to ibainc.com. I think the big thing is just clarifying what people really want, right? And then finding the tools or strategies to help fit what they really want. I found more and more of the baby boomers or even the entrepreneurs that we work with, they want truly passive income. And we call that the fourth quadrant of the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad book. Most people never achieve that fourth quadrant. They're stuck in 2 or 3, right? And so they're trading their time, their talent, their energy, their resources in the business or in the real estate, and they're ready to get to that fourth quadrant, which is where their money is working for them completely full time, and they're living off the truly passive income number. So I call it, we say it's like this. You're Kenny Chesney on the beach, and you're playing the guitar, and you have no shoes, no shirt, no problem, and the money is durable, it's consistent, it's showing up 20, 30, 40, 50,000 a month, whatever that number is for you, and you're not having to trade time or energy or risk, really. I mean, it's diversified. I mean, there's some risk in the investments, right? But you're only paying taxes, you receive payments back. We happen to specialize in the deferred sales trust, and one of the few in the country that Delaware's and 1031s, all 3. And sometimes we use a combination of all 3. Right, because there's debt over basis issues, because the real estate itself, you find a nice deal that you want to buy, right? We had a client, $6 million exit out of Texas. He did a partial Delaware, partial regular 1031, and a partial deferred sales trust. That's great. And so it's being open-minded enough to not allow the tax tail to wag the investment dog, but also the tax tail to wag the tax strategy. Like, look at which strategy or combination of them can help you achieve what you want to achieve. The other part of it is the entrepreneur who wants to go into another business. What I love about the DST, you can partner with the trust to go back into other business ventures, tax deferred. So you're not stuck in some of these other strategies like 1031s, especially the triple net deals or the Delawares. All your eggs, if you do a regular 1031 or a regular Delaware, typically are all in one asset, no liquidity, no diversification, right? A lot of the Delawares are paying like 5%. You have no control. A lot of our entrepreneurs want to do the next deal or do their next business or real estate or their grandkids or their kids, and they don't want to just be passive. So these are just some things that people, I would encourage you to think about. The next one, Gregory, is estate tax. I think this is the one that gets missed most of the time. People believe, oh yeah, 1031 and swap until you drop and get a stepped up basis. That's true for cap gains tax, but it has nothing to do with estate tax and debt tax. Right? So debt tax is 40% of anything above 30 million married or 15 million single. Now, our strategy, we have a 2.0 version that eliminates this estate tax without any charity, life insurance, or gifting required. But this is such a pivotal moment. It takes a sale of an asset while you're still alive and setting up this irrevocable trust prior to all of it consummating, right? If you set it up in time and properly execute this, you can achieve this all in one day and one sale. And it's remarkable to me either the lack of planning or just the lack of knowledge of some of these strategies, and then people put themselves in really tough positions. But what is your encouragement or advice when it comes to the estate tax planning?
Right, you hit on a really good point. I encourage people to think about where the dollars are going after they pass. If they're going to their kids, if they're going to their grandkids, you want to plan ahead, and it may be putting some of the stock of a C Corp into a trust pre-sale, or even donating it to your favorite charity pre-sale, so you're not donating money to them post-tax. If you get it into their nonprofit before the sale's completed as a stock gift, then they get to deal with the tax implications, and it can be much more favorable. So instead, you talk about a 40% hit. If you're giving someone $100,000, who would rather 60,000 or 100,000? So that's the type of things where putting your elements in place, it's going to take us 6 to 12 months to sell a business on the short end. So you have time to meet with people, pick the right attorney to negotiate on your behalf, make sure your wealth advisor knows what they're doing, or maybe bring in a consulting CPA or wealth advisor to address an issue which they may not be familiar with. Again, you want to bring the talent to the table on your side, because you really only have one chance to get this right.
Oh, I can't agree with you more. Gregory Kovsky, everybody. You can learn more about him by going to ibainc.com, ibainc.com. And if you have a large exit that you are considering having, and you're looking at building a capital gains tax exit plan, our company, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, offers services in all 50 states. Businesses, Bitcoin, real estate. It can save a failed 1031 exchange or be in combination of a 1031 exchange. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com or check out the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. It's actually my story, Gregory, of Marcus and Millichap days, 2006 to 2008, the crash in '09, and learning about what people could have done had they known about this strategy, right? Had they had a team of professionals like you're talking about, and had they executed and planned. And so, I think it's just as important to build a capital gains tax exit plan, because guess what? The government is your 20, 30, 40, 50% partner if you don't. And they're happy to take their fair share right at the close of all of your efforts. Or you can build a plan to defer that and or the estate tax elimination if you properly plan. And Gregor's exactly right. This time frame is so crucial on those exits. You only have so many of those exits in your lifetime. Make sure you have a team and a plan in place. Gregor, we're way over time. You ready for the lightning round?
Sure. Shoot.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one gold nugget makes you to tell yourself to do?
Accept risk, that the ability to bounce back is even more existent than you may think, that the fall as a 20-year-old is not significant. It's much more significant at 50 or 60.
Love it. Great wisdom. Next question. Number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Actually, I just pulled it to give it to my son, and it's an older book, but in alignment with the World Cup, which is coming up. It's called Leading, and it's by Sir Alex Ferguson of Man U fame, and it's a very good business book related to being at the head of the most powerful and successful soccer franchise in the world when he was there.
Fantastic. Love it. Check that book out. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
I think I'm probably in the pond of people to see where AI goes with the economy. I mean, I tend to be glass half full and align with Javon's paradox that I believe the economy didn't crash when we invented the tractor and the combine and modern farming methods. We actually became more productive, and the people got absorbed by the economy. And I think people sell fear, but I think it's going to just be a reallocation of resources in seeing where those productive resources go, because I don't think in the 1800s the sharecroppers realized where the economy was going at that stage when they saw automation enter that domain.
Yeah, good wisdom and good insight. And I tend to lean towards that side too. But you also have, it's hard when you're in this, right, to see like where the kids, what are they going to do. I had heard we homeschool our kids, and part of that is to give them more financial, entrepreneurial, biblical approach to how they do life in the world. And conflict resolution, personal and interpersonal communication, leadership, like those are things that AI, we say it now, aren't going to take, right? And so that's a big piece of that. Excellent. Next question, which I think kind of dovetails on it. Number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Struggle with or support?
Number one leadership quote that you strive to live by?
I just think leave it all on the court every day.
I love that. John Wooden says it well. Success is the peace of mind, which is the direct result of self-satisfaction and knowing you did your very best to become the best you're capable of becoming, right? And that's the definition of success and winning, right? The outcome is the byproduct of giving your very best and then working as a team to be able to do that. I have this year with John Wooden I look at. He's so good. He has a book too on the memoirs, like his memoirs and like his wisdom. It's so rich if you get a chance. I played basketball in college, so I'm kind of that's my big sport. What's your number one sport, Gregory? Are you a big Seahawks fan, or what's your number? Is it soccer?
Well, no, you and I actually come from the same background. I don't know if you knew this on my resume, but I coached college basketball for 4 years.
Wow.
Post graduating from the University of Texas, where I actually loved the Michigan story because I was a student manager like he was at Texas, and pursued the dream for 4 years post college myself.
Oh, that's incredible. I haven't coached basketball at that level. I did some 7th grade, and I did my 7-year-old here last 2 years. But that's amazing. Congratulations on that. What another part of your book. When are you going to write your book to share all these stories?
Oh, I don't know that I'll write a book, but I'm happy to share my stories. It was actually very instrumental of being successful in M&A. My last stop, I was coaching in the Jayhawk Conference in Kansas. Actually, Brad Underwood, who took Illinois to the Final Four this year, was also coaching in the conference at the same time. And what I used in business brokerage, which is very interesting, is what's more intangible to sell than a junior college scholarship to come play for you? You are truly selling yourself, and I believe that ability to sell the intangible has benefited me as an M&A broker.
Oh, I absolutely believe it, and it's such a cool background. I love that. I actually shot hoops this morning.
Nice.
Woke up early, went to the gym, and that's one of my ways that it helps me to meditate and just by myself, just shooting for 20, 30 minutes, whatever, an hour. And it's just, it's kind of like maybe what golf is for some people is basketball for me. Greg, we're way out of time. It's the very last question and we'll wrap it up. After all your success helping all the people you've helped exit businesses and create a great legacy for their finances and even their company that they're selling, how do you best keep a mindset of stewardship over ownership?
It's actually the overarching concept at IBA, which is the golden rule. I just treat people like I want to be treated. And it doesn't matter if it's professional or personal engagement. Doesn't matter if it's our clients or my team. I am always looking at the other side of the relationship and saying, if I was in their shoes, would I be satisfied?
Amazing. Gregory Kovsky, I want to thank you for being on the show, sharing your wisdom. For people who want to get in touch with you, one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
You can reach me at 425-454-3052, which is my corporate headquarters, or like you've mentioned, our website, which is ibainc.com, ice cream boy apple, ice cream Nancy Charlie.com.
Amazing. And also want to thank all of our listeners or viewers for watching or listening to another episode of the Build to Billions podcast, also streaming on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channel. And we're on this journey with you to scale from millions to billions so we can get more all the way to help MVPs, the most vulnerable people. My name is Brett Swartz. If you have a large exit coming up, we want to help you defer that capital gains tax or eliminate that estate tax, not having to use a 1031 exchange or maybe using a partial 1031 exchange. But you got to get started. You got to do this before you exit. You got to be intentional. You got to do all the things we've been talking about today with Gregory. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also pick up the book of Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. Again, it's my journey to learn all of the things that I hope you would know as well before you exit, helping clients after the 2008 crash know what strategies they have for capital gains tax exit planning. Just go to Amazon to pick that up or go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Appreciate everyone watching and listening. We'll talk to you again real soon. Bye now.